Indiana football just got exactly what they needed. Let's talk about it. My name is Paul, together with my buddy Aaron. We are the Big Ten guys. Tune in every day for the latest Big Ten news, insights, and analysis. If you're a fan of Indiana or any Big Ten football team, take just a quick second, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Got a lot more Hoosier content coming. This is a team that's going to be playing all the way into January. So we'll be talking a lot more Indiana, so don't miss out. And then before I get going, comment below what were your thoughts on the game. That was a wild one. I'm a Michigan fan. If you haven't caught the show before, Aaron's a Michigan State fan, but we like to talk all things Big Ten. I was like jumping out of my seat at the end of that game. Like, that was one of the craziest finishes I've seen in a long time. Um, Gus Johnson probably doesn't have a voice today. Joel Klatt might not have. Like, I don't think I've ever heard. I've heard Gus get that excited before. I'm not sure I've heard Joel Klatt get that excited before with that Omar Cooper catch. But regardless, that was one of the games of the season. I loved it. I'm sure you guys loved it. So let me know all your thoughts on the game. But what I wanted to talk about today is, like, it's easy, and I'm sure ESPN and the SEC bias is going to come out and be like, oh, is Indiana that good? They almost just lost to a team that's winless in the Big Ten. But I actually think that game couldn't have been more important for Indiana, the way it like turned out. Like, you look at previous national champions, and they all had a game like this where they were just punched in the mouth by a team that they shouldn't have really been that close to. And, you know, to be fair, Penn State's a lot better than people give them credit. Like, that defensive line is full of future first round picks. They've had a rough season. The offense has been really hit or miss. But at the end of the day, like, this team was preseason top 5 for a reason. This isn't your typical 3-6 team. But regardless, I think this was exactly what Indiana needed for two big reasons. Reason number one is, with Elijah Surratt out, I think it kind of paved the way for Indiana to have other guys be the superstar. Obviously, Fernando Heisman Mendoza, he's always going to be the superstar as long as he's out there. And I hope this sealed the Heisman for him. Gus thought it did. I agree with him. But I think the emergence of Charlie Becker could be huge for this team moving forward. Like, you just look at, here, I'll pull up his game log this year. Like, hasn't had more than 2 catches in a game. He had the big catch against Maryland, but like, he's been relatively quiet up to this point in the season. But without Elijah Surratt, you saw Fernando Mendoza developed like, just in one game, like, he developed a trust with Charlie Becker that I think could be massive in the playoffs. Like, everybody's going to talk about that Omar Cooper catch, and rightfully so. That was, like, the way he, like, swapped his feet at the last second and lifted his right foot because it looked like he was going to hit out of bounds and tap that lat. Like, one of the best catches I've ever seen. I was in disbelief. But if he hadn't done that, if it was just a normal catch, a lot of people would have been talking about the Charlie Becker catch a couple plays before, where he went up, snagged it falling out of bounds, and tapped that foot down at like the 5-yard line. He had another catch on another play that Gus Johnson screamed when Mendoza was getting hit on a big 3rd down, and he pulled it down. And like, you could just see Fernando Mendoza by the end of that game, he knew, like, if I put this in the right spot, which he pretty much always does, Charlie Becker's going to come down to it. So just having a third receiver now, because I'd imagine Surratt's going to be back next week. He'll for sure be back for the Big Ten championship in the playoffs. But now you have Becker, you have Cooper, and you have Surratt, who, you know, when the game's on the line, Fernando Mendoza has that trust to just toss it up to them and let them make a play. So I think that is big. But then I think the other thing that is big is, you saw Mendoza in the key moment. You know, team is trailing on the road, hostile environment, less than 2 minutes left, sacked on the first play, pressure in his face, no timeouts, and he delivered. He showed he's got that dog in him. When the chips are on the table, he's the kind of guy who can lead a game-winning drive. And just know, like, just being in a game, because sometimes I think it can hurt a team a little bit when they're just blowing every single team out. Because eventually you're going to find a team who can play you pretty equally. And if you haven't been in one of these games where it's just a dogfight and whoever makes the big play at the end of the game wins, it's tough to play in that if you haven't been there. So Indiana has been in that game now. And you look at, I'm going to pull up the past two national champions here. You look at Michigan, just like very similar season to Indiana in 2023, where they're just rolling through everybody. Blowout, 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 blowout. And then all of a sudden, there's just a random game at Maryland, who I think went 6-6 that year. And I remember this game. This was a one-score game. I think it was 29-24 in the fourth quarter. Maryland ball. Maryland had a legitimate chance to win this game. It wasn't like 31-17 and they backdoor made it a one-score game. They had the ball, one-score game. Michigan ended up safetying them with a couple minutes left to make it 31-24. But like, this game was in doubt in the fourth quarter. And I think playing in a game like that really helped this Michigan team, because the next week they played a team who was pretty much their equal in Ohio State. But now they've played in a game like that and pulled out that tough win. And they needed it when they went on and played Bama, played another elite team who could match them up. And they had been in that situation where you got to win that tough fourth quarter game, and that helped them in the playoffs. And then same thing with Ohio State last year. They had a tough loss against Oregon early, but then it was blowout, blowout, blowout. And then they just had this random dogfight with Michigan. They lost it. So, good for Indiana for winning their dogfight game against a team that they shouldn't have, that most people would say shouldn't have been as close as it was. Ohio State lost that game. But then come playoff time, like, they had gotten punched in the mouth. And, not just experiencing, like, the tough game, but I think coaches really need these games a lot too, because then they can look like, all right, this is how this team attacked us and beat us. And future teams are going to look at that film and try to replicate it. But now Cignetti can look at it and be like, okay, this is how we were. Like, Penn State clearly saw a hole here in our offense and our defense and attacked it this way. Now I can adjust and make sure when a future team tries to do that, we can make sure we're ready for it and do better against it. So I think that's really what happened in these two games for Ohio State, is they saw, okay, here's how some good teams attacked us, and now you get into the playoffs, and they were able to work out those kinks, and they, ran right through to the national championship. So I really think this game was huge for Indiana. It showed, like, the emergence of Charlie B, as Gus Johnson was calling him. Just seeing that Fernando Mendoza, when everything is against him, can, like, he's got that it factor, made all the big throws, showed he can win the big game like that. And then lastly, just the adjustments Cignetti's going to be able to make. The guys now, they've played in a close game. And I think it's going to be huge for Indiana moving forward. I personally don't listen to anybody who's telling you, like, maybe Indiana's not that good. This is, Ohio State and Indiana are the two best teams in the country. I don't think anybody's even in that same tier, not even Texas A&M. But I think this game was good for Indiana and will help them when they get into the playoffs. But you guys let me know what you think. And then, as always, don't forget, just like and subscribe on the way out.